Welcome back to Night Tales Hub, where passion meets the unexpected and hidden connections come to light. Today, we bring you a story that dives deep into the complexities of longing and unspoken bonds. Don't forget to subscribe for more captivating tales of love, lust, and life-surprising turns. I'm Alice, a 42-year-old stepmother who never anticipated being caught in such a web of emotions. My husband, Daryl, is an accomplished businessman always on the go, driven by his endless projects and responsibilities. His ambition and dedication are qualities I've long admired, yet they leave me feeling increasingly alone. I often find myself yearning for the closeness and warmth we once shared, the thrill of being truly seen and cherished. As time slipped by, I grew more aware of an ache for connection, a craving for the intimacy that had slowly faded from our relationship. The house, once filled with laughter and love, felt colder, emptier each night as Daryl's footsteps echoed down the hall toward his office, leaving me to the silence. The only spark of company was Blake, my 24-year-old stepson who had recently moved back in after college. Blake was everything a mother could be proud of, kind, thoughtful, and supportive. But there was something else too, a quiet magnetism I couldn't ignore. He had grown into a handsome young man, one who made my pulse quicken whenever our eyes met. I felt drawn to him in a way I knew I shouldn't. And yet, no matter how much I tried to suppress these feelings, they kept resurfacing, stronger and more undeniable than ever. One dreary afternoon, after a particularly lonely day waiting for Daryl, I decided to slip into something comfortable, hoping to find a small spark of confidence I had long missed. Just as I began to lose myself in a daydream, I heard the door open. It was Blake, home earlier than I'd expected, his smile warm as he greeted me. A moment of unspoken tension passed between us, a fleeting glance that lingered longer than it should have. What happened next is a story of loneliness, vulnerability, and the allure of connection. Stay with me as I share how one chance moment changed everything, unraveling a tale that left me questioning the boundaries of love and desire. Welcome back to Night Tales Hub, where we share yet another mesmerizing story of ardor and unforeseen bonds. If you relish these captivating tales, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more alluring narratives. My name is Alice, a 42-year-old stepmother who never anticipated finding myself entangled in such a tangled web of feelings. My husband, Daryl, is an exceptionally accomplished businessman, often glued to his phone or fully immersed in work. While I sincerely value his commitment to his career, it frequently leaves me feeling lonely and overlooked, yearning for the connection we once had. As days drifted into weeks, I found myself longing for companionship and closeness, craving the affection that had gradually disappeared from our relationship. The nights felt especially lonesome as I'd hear Daryl's footsteps echo throughout our expansive home, heading to his office while I stayed in the stillness of what used to be a lively and spirited household. I deeply missed the spark of romance, the warmth of a gentle embrace, and the thrill of feeling cherished. My thoughts often wandered to my stepson Blake, a striking 24-year-old who had recently returned home after finishing his college studies. Blake had always been respectful and considerate, the kind of young man you could depend on. However, there was an undeniable attraction between us, a bond that was difficult to disregard. He had matured into a remarkably handsome young man, and I often found myself glancing at him, feeling my pulse quicken whenever our eyes met. I knew it was inappropriate to entertain such thoughts, but the more I tried to suppress my emotions, the stronger they seemed to grow. One afternoon, after a long, gloomy day of waiting for Daryl to return, I decided it was time to change my clothes and do something to lift my spirits. Catching my reflection in the mirror, I sighed, missing the days when I felt beautiful and wanted. I headed to the bedroom, hoping to lose myself in thoughts of what could be, allowing my imagination to wander for a moment. Just as I was about to put on a silk robe, I heard the door creak open unexpectedly. It was Blake, arriving home earlier than I'd expected. "Hey, Alice," he said casually, a bright smile lighting up his face as he stepped inside. My heart raced, and I instinctively grabbed my robe to cover myself, but it was too late. Blake's eyes widened as he took in the sight of me. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," he stammered, his gaze lingering on me just a second longer than it should have. "It's all right," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "I was just changing." A blush crept across my cheeks as we stood there in uneasy silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. I sensed a shift between us, an electric charge that was impossible to ignore. Blake shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his eyes flicking back to mine as if he were contemplating something meaningful. I should probably leave, he finally murmured, stepping back toward the doorway. Wait, I whispered, my voice soft and barely audible. You don't have to go. We can just talk. He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. The attraction simmering beneath the surface felt almost tangible, and I knew I had to take a risk. Blake, I've been feeling pretty isolated lately. It's tough being here without Daryl around. I know we haven't really connected the way we could, I said, my voice quiet yet earnest. I get it, he replied, his tone equally serious. It's been odd with him, so caught up in work all the time. Taking a deep breath, I felt a surge of confidence. What if we spent some time together, just the two of us, to see if we could get closer? To my surprise, a smile spread across his face. I'd really enjoy that. Pulled by an invisible force, I moved closer to him, the space between us narrowing until we were only inches apart. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, the chemistry between us unmistakable. This spark between us is undeniable, I murmured softly. Alice, I have to be honest. I've thought about you far more than I should, he confessed, moving even closer, his voice tinged with a nervous excitement. In that instant, all my worries faded, and I leaned forward, our lips meeting in a gentle kiss that quickly deepened, sparking a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. His hands found their way to my waist, pulling me close as we sank into each other. Breathless and exhilarated, I broke the kiss. This feels so wrong, I whispered, my heart racing with a mix of confusion and thrill. Maybe it is, but it feels so right, he replied, his voice low and thick with desire. Before I could think twice about the consequences, I drew him into another kiss, my fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss grew more intense, his hands exploring my back as I pressed against him. The warmth radiating from his body sent shivers down my spine with each touch. As we pulled back, I met his gaze, seeing that same blend of excitement and apprehension mirrored in his eyes. Are we really doing this? I whispered, breathless and alive. Yes, he answered resolutely, gripping my waist and drawing me closer. I want this, Alice. I've wanted you for so long. With those words, I felt emboldened, driven by a passion I could no longer resist. I stepped back slightly, taking his hand and leading him toward the bed. The moment felt surreal, yet I was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. As we sat on the edge of the bed, I leaned in again, our lips meeting with renewed intensity. Blake's hands roamed over my body, tracing every curve as I surrendered to his touch. I could feel the heat building between us, rekindling a fire I hadn't felt in years. My fingers traced along his jawline, and I saw the fierce desire blazing in his eyes. Let's not hold anything back, I said breathlessly, exhilarated by this newfound courage. He nodded, leaning in to kiss me deeply once again. I could feel him pressing against me, his body warm and eager. My hands wandered over his chest, feeling the firm muscles beneath his shirt. I knew I wanted more, and the thought sent a thrill through me. Slowly, I guided him back onto the bed, straddling him as I kissed him with intensity. He gazed up at me, eyes wide with both surprise and excitement. I never saw this coming, he whispered, gripping my hips firmly. Neither did I replied, my voice low and sultry. But it feels way too good to stop now. As we continued to kiss, I felt him respond to my every touch, our bodies moving in perfect sync. My hands slipped beneath his shirt, exploring his toned stomach, savoring the warmth of his skin. He let out a soft groan, and the sound sent chills down my spine. Alice, you're amazing, he murmured, his hands sliding to my back, pulling me closer as I pressed against him. I loved the way he looked at me, the desire in his gaze fueling my confidence and making me feel alive. I want to feel you, I whispered, my voice thick with longing and anticipation. Then let's not delay any longer, he said, his hands finding the edge of my robe, gently pulling it open as I gasped at the sensation of being bare before him. A wave of excitement washed over me. You're stunning, he murmured, leaning in to kiss my collarbone, sparking a fire within me that spread like wildfire. I felt the warmth rising, allowing myself to fully surrender to the pleasure of the moment. His hands roamed over my body, igniting every nerve as he kissed down my neck, sending waves of pleasure through me. I let out a quiet moan, arching against him as he continued his tantalizing path of kisses. More, I urged, my body craving his touch with an insatiable intensity. With newfound assurance, Blake sat up, gripping my waist as he shifted us, pinning me against the bed. His eyes glinted with a mix of mischief and longing as he leaned down for another kiss, capturing my lips with fervent passion. I felt his weight pressing into me, every moment alive with energy and anticipation. In a bold move, I reached for him, surprised by his size. He was so big that I could hardly hold him. His soft moans made my desire for him even stronger. We surrendered to each other, the world outside fading as we explored our deepest cravings. The room filled with soft murmurs, and the sound of our bodies moving as one. Every caress, every kiss felt more intoxicating than the last. Entwined together, I felt a liberation and freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I wanted to savor every inch of him, to immerse myself completely in the moment. Our bodies moved in sync, igniting a fire that enveloped us both with passion. Eventually, as the intensity eased, we settled into a cozy embrace, catching our breath. I gazed into Blake's eyes, feeling a rush of joy and exhilaration I hadn't felt in so long. But just as I began to relax, the doorbell rang, pulling me out of my blissful daze. "What was that?" I asked, my heart racing as reality came crashing in. "It's probably your husband," Blake said, his eyes wide with alarm. "Daryl wasn't supposed to be home for hours," I exclaimed, hurriedly adjusting my robe. "Quick, we have to hide," Blake urged, glancing toward the door. We jumped up frantically, trying to make ourselves presentable. Just as we managed to compose ourselves, I heard Daryl's voice echoing down the hallway. "Alice, are you home?" he called out, sounding cheerful and blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding. Yeah, I'm in the bedroom," I answered, my heart pounding as I glanced at Blake, who looked just as flustered as I felt. "Stay quiet," I whispered urgently, and Blake nodded, quickly slipping into the closet just as Daryl entered the room. Daryl walked in with a smile, catching sight of me. "I didn't think you'd be here." "How was your day?" he asked, stepping closer. "Just the usual," I replied, forcing a smile and trying to seem as natural as possible. "Busy as always," he sighed. "But I thought I'd take a break and spend some quality time with you." I nodded, feeling a mix of guilt and thrill. I could still sense Blake's presence lingering in the room, his warmth and the excitement of our shared moments. I had to set those thoughts aside as I tried to focus on Daryl, who seemed unaware of the tension hanging between us. As the evening wore on, Daryl and I settled onto the couch, exchanging light conversation, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Blake and the electric connection we'd shared. My heart raced each time I remembered it, sparking a fire within me that I couldn't ignore. A few days later, with Daryl out for yet another late meeting, I found myself alone at home again. My mind was flooded with memories of our last encounter. I missed the thrill of feeling desired, of feeling truly alive. Deciding to take a long, soothing bath to ease my tension, I hoped it would calm my racing thoughts. I lit a few candles and filled the tub with warm water, letting the steam envelop me as I sank in. My thoughts drifted back to Blake, recalling the way his hands explored my body, the intensity in his kisses. It was intoxicating. A rush of warmth spread through me at the memory, and I knew I wanted to see him again. Just then, I heard a faint knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly wrapped myself in a towel before opening the door to find Blake standing there with a mischievous grin. "Hey," he said, his eyes gleaming. "Not at all," I replied, my heart pounding at his unexpected visit. "Come in." As he stepped into the bathroom, a wave of excitement surged through me at having him so close again. "I was just taking a bath," I said shyly, trying to steady my nerves. "Looks tempting," he replied, his gaze lingering as I leaned against the doorframe. "Mind if I join you?" I hesitated for a brief moment, my heart racing at the thought of being so close to him again, but the thrill was impossible to resist. "Sure, why not?" In an instant, Blake stepped into the bathroom, closing the door behind him. The air felt thick with anticipation as I watched him undress slowly, my breath catching as he revealed his sculpted body. Every part of me yearned to touch him, to feel the warmth radiating from him as he slipped into the tub beside me. The warm water surrounded us, creating a cocoon of intimacy. We shared a nervous glance before our lips met in a passionate kiss, water splashing around us as I melted into him. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer as my fingers tangled in his hair. Our kisses grew deeper, filled with hunger and longing as we lost ourselves in the moment. I felt the heat of his body against mine, fueling a fire that spread through me. "You're even more stunning than I remembered," Blake murmured against my lips, his breath warm against my skin. I smiled, feeling both flattered and emboldened. "And you're even more irresistible each time I see you," I replied, my confidence blooming. I gently pushed him back against the tub, straddling him as I pressed my body against his. The water swirled around us, but I was completely absorbed in the sensation of his skin against mine. My fingers trailed down his chest, savoring the feel of his muscles beneath my touch. "Lisa," he breathed, his voice filled with longing. "You don't know how much I've wanted this." "Then show me," I responded, my voice husky as I leaned in for another kiss. This time, it was more intense, the world beyond slipping away as we lost ourselves in each other. The water mixed with our desires as our kisses grew more fervent. I could feel his hands traveling over my body, tracing every curve as I surrendered to his touch. The thrill of being so close to him sent a shiver down my spine, sparking every nerve ending. I leaned back slightly, letting him kiss down my neck, savoring the warmth of his lips on my skin. "Oh, Blake," I gasped, my body arching toward him, craving more. With a deep, desirous growl, he cupped my face, his thumbs brushing gently over my cheeks as he pulled me in for another searing kiss. I felt the heat building between us, an intense energy drawing us closer, urging us to dive deeper. The water around us faded into the background as we became tangled together, lost in the passion of the moment. My hands roamed his body, tracing over his shoulders and down his arms as he deepened our kiss, each movement amplifying the connection between us. Suddenly, a wave of courage came over me, and I pulled back slightly, meeting his gaze. "Let's take this further," I whispered, my heart pounding with excitement. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice thick with longing. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation. With that, we moved together, the warm water enveloping us as we embraced the fire of our desires. We pressed against each other, our bodies entwined as the passion intensified, our breaths mingling as we surrendered to the moment. Time seemed to dissolve as we explored every inch of each other, feeling the warmth of our connection deepen. I felt exhilarated, alive in a way I hadn't in years. But just as we began to relax, the sound of the front door echoed through the house, and we exchanged alarmed glances. "Daryl's here," I gasped, feeling a surge of panic rise within me. "Quick! We have to get out of here," Blake said, quickly stepping out of the tub. We both hurriedly dried off and slipped back into our clothes, the tension thick as we tried to make ourselves look presentable. Just as I finished fixing my hair, I heard Daryl's voice call out once more. "Alice, I'm home," he shouted. "We have to hide," Blake said, casting a worried look toward the door. I nodded, and we both ducked into the closet, our breaths mingling as we waited for the tension to ease. Daryl started washing his hands at the sink, completely unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded in his own home. "How was your day, Alice?" he asked, his tone casual. "Just relaxing," I replied, my heart racing as I exchanged a nervous glance with Blake. After a few nerve-wracking moments, Daryl finished and left the bathroom, giving us a chance to breathe a sigh of relief. "That was close," Blake whispered, his eyes bright with excitement. "I know, I can't believe we just," I began. But before I could finish, he leaned in and kissed me softly, bringing back the thrill we'd just shared. "We can't stop now," he murmured, his voice urgent with desire. "This is just the beginning." My heart raced again, caught between the excitement of our secret and the reality of my life with Daryl. But deep down, I knew that whatever was happening between Blake and me was something I couldn't resist. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, wherever it might lead. As we emerged from the closet, the air was charged with possibilities. We both knew our lives would never be the same. The thrill of the forbidden lingered, and I was ready to explore this unexpected romance, no matter what lay ahead.